Alexander the Great is one of the most famous figures in world history, a man whose name has echoed through the centuries as a symbol of courage, ambition, and unstoppable conquest. Born in 356 BC in the city of Pella, the capital of ancient Macedonia, his life quickly became the stuff of legend. His father was King Philip II of Macedonia, already a brilliant military leader and cunning politician. And his mother was Olympias, a woman of deep religious devotion and fierce will. Yet, as with many figures of antiquity, myths soon began to surround Alexander's birth. Among the Greeks, it was said that he was no mere mortal, but rather the son of Zeus himself, king of the gods, who is known in mythology for descending from Olympus in various disguises to seduce mortal women. Zeus, according to the stories, had taken a special interest in Olympias, and Alexander was the result a demigod born to rule. To a practical mind, this was nothing more than a story to inspire loyalty and awe, but in an age when myth and reality often mingled, it helped create the image of a leader destined for greatness before he had even drawn his first breath. Even in his youth, Alexander showed extraordinary qualities. At the age of just 12, he proved his bravery and determination by taming a wild stallion that no man had been able to control. The horse, named Bucephalus, had thrown every rider who attempted to mount it, and the stable hands feared it could never be broken. Yet Alexander, noticing that the animal was simply afraid of its own shadow, turned it to face the sun so the shadows disappeared, mounted it, and rode it with ease. This act impressed his father so much that Philip is said to have declared that Macedonia was too small for his son's ambitions, and that he must seek a kingdom large enough to match his spirit. Bucephalus would remain Alexander's trusted companion for most of his military career, carrying him into battle after battle, until both man and horse were laid to rest far from the place where they first met. Alexander's education was as remarkable as his early deeds. At the age of 13, King Philip sought the best possible teacher for his son and secured the services of Aristotle, one of the greatest minds of the ancient world. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander studied philosophy, politics, literature, medicine, and science, developing not only a deep knowledge of the world, but also a love of learning that would stay with him throughout his life. Aristotle taught him the value of reason and inquiry, the principles of government, and the arts of persuasion and diplomacy. However, Aristotle also instilled in him the belief, common to many Greeks of the time, that Greeks were inherently superior to non-Greeks, and that other peoples were suited only for servitude. This idea, though accepted by many, was one that Alexander would later set aside when he began to rule over vast and diverse territories. By his mid-teens, Alexander was already showing signs of leadership. In 340 BC, while Philip campaigned against Byzantium, Alexander was left in charge of Macedonia as regent. His opportunity came quickly when a Thracian tribe known as the Mede rebelled. Alexander wasted no time, raising an army, marching against them, defeating them decisively, and establishing a new city in their territory. This was not just a military success, but a political statement, a clear sign that even as a teenager, Alexander had the decisiveness, courage, and vision to lead men in war and govern conquered lands. 2 years later, in 338 BC, Philip faced a coalition of Greek city-states led by Athens and Thebes. In the decisive Battle of Chaeronea, Alexander commanded the Macedonian cavalry and played a crucial role in defeating the legendary Sacred Band of Thebes, a fearsome elite force composed of 150 pairs of deeply bonded warriors. The victories cemented Philip's control over Greece and elevated Alexander's reputation among the Macedonian army. Yet, even with these triumphs, trouble loomed within the royal family. Philip divorced Olympias and married another woman, Cleopatra Eurydice. At the wedding feast, tensions between father and son erupted into a public argument, and Alexander, along with his mother, fled Macedonia, fearing for their lives. Although father and son later reconciled, the relationship remained strained. Then, in 336 BC, Philip was assassinated, possibly as the result of a conspiracy involving palace guards. The sudden death left Macedonia in a vulnerable position. With several rivals eyeing the throne, Alexander acted swiftly, rallying the army to his side, eliminating his political opponents, and securing his position as king. At just 20 years old, Philip had already laid the groundwork for a grand campaign against Persia, the great rival of Greece for generations. At an assembly of Greek city-states in Corinth, the united Greeks reaffirmed their commitment to the invasion. naming Alexander as supreme commander of the combined forces. But before turning his attention eastward, Alexander needed to ensure the loyalty of Greece itself. Some city-states resisted his authority, and when rumors of his death reached Greece during a northern campaign, Thebes seized the opportunity to revolt, gaining support from Athens. Alexander responded with incredible speed, leading his army on a forced march of 240 miles in just 2 weeks to reach Thebes. When the city refused to surrender, he besieged it, ultimately destroying it as a warning to others. Thebes was burned to the ground, its surviving inhabitants sold into slavery, and the rest of Greece quickly fell in line. Athens, however, was spared, a gesture that would earn Alexander some goodwill among the Greeks. With Greece secure, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor in 334 BC, beginning his legendary campaign against the Persian Empire. Though vastly outnumbered, he relied on the discipline, training, and flexibility of his forces, which included heavy cavalry, skilled infantry, archers, and light troops. At the Battle of Issus, in 333 BC, he faced King Darius III in person. The Persians had the advantage in numbers, but Alexander's tactics were superior. His forces broke through the Persian lines, and Darius, fearing capture, fled the battlefield, leaving behind not only his troops, but also his wife, daughters, and mother. In a dramatic turn, Darius's mother rejected her own son for his cowardice, and instead embraced Alexander as her protector. Alexander's victories continued as he marched south, capturing the rich and strategic cities of Phoenicia. He laid siege to the island fortress of Tyre for 7 months before finally taking it, and then secured Egypt without a fight. In Egypt, he was hailed as a liberator and declared the son of the god Amun at the Oracle of Siwa, further cementing his semi-divine status in the eyes of his followers. He founded the city of Alexandria, which would become a great center of learning and culture in the centuries to come. In 331 BC, Alexander once again faced Darius. This time, at the Battle of Gaugamela, the Persian king assembled a massive army, including war elephants and scythed chariots, hoping to overwhelm the Macedonians. The fighting was fierce, but Alexander's strategy and leadership prevailed. Darius fled for the last time, only to be betrayed and murdered by one of his own generals, Bessus. When Alexander found Darius's body, he honored him with a royal funeral and punished the assassins, demonstrating a respect for kingship that transcended national rivalries. With Darius dead, Alexander claimed the Persian throne, but his work was far from over. Bessus declared himself king and retreated into the eastern provinces. Alexander pursued him relentlessly, eventually capturing and executing him. Now, ruler of an empire stretching from Greece to Central Asia, Alexander adopted elements of Persian dress and customs, a decision that caused resentment among his Macedonian soldiers, who saw it as a betrayal of their traditions. Tensions boiled over when one of his closest friends and generals insulted him during a drunken quarrel, and in a fit of rage, Alexander killed him, seeking new conquests, and perhaps hoping to unite his army through further glory. Alexander turned toward India in 327 BC. Many local rulers submitted to his authority without resistance. But at the Battle of the Hydaspes River in 326 BC, he faced King Porus, whose forces included war elephants. The animals caused chaos among the Macedonian troops, but Alexander's cavalry outmaneuvered them, and the battle ended in victory. Impressed by Porus's bravery, Alexander allowed him to continue ruling as a vassal. Despite these successes, his army had reached its limit. Exhausted and longing for home, the soldiers refused to march further east. Reluctantly, Alexander agreed to turn back. Returning through the harsh Gedrosian desert, the campaign took a heavy toll on his forces. In an effort to unite Greeks and Persians, he staged a mass wedding at Susa in 324 BC, where many of his officers married Persian noblewomen. This move was deeply unpopular with the Macedonians, leading to threats of mutiny. Alexander responded by replacing Greek officers with Persians, forcing his men to reconsider their stance. Eventually, he reconciled with his troops through a lavish banquet and the restoration of their honors. By the time he returned to Babylon in 323 BC, Alexander was planning new campaigns, including the conquest of Arabia. But in June of that year, he fell ill after a banquet. Over the course of several days, his condition worsened until he could no longer speak. On June 10 or 11, Alexander died at the age of 32. The cause of his death remains one of history's great mysteries, with theories ranging from poisoning to malaria, typhoid, or other natural illnesses. His death left a power vacuum that quickly tore his empire apart. Without a clear successor, his only legitimate heir was an unborn child. His generals, known as the Diadochi, began a series of wars to divide his vast territories among themselves. The unity he had forged through conquest collapsed, but his legacy endured. Alexander's campaign spread Greek culture and language across the known world, ushering in the Hellenistic Age, a period of vibrant exchange between East and West. Cities he founded became centers of learning, trade, and innovation. His military strategies continued to be studied for centuries, and his life story inspired countless leaders, writers, and artists. Alexander the Great's reign was short, but the mark he left on history is immeasurable. In just over a decade, he created one of the largest empires the world had ever seen, blending cultures in ways that shaped civilizations long after his death. Whether seen as a hero, a ruthless conqueror, or a visionary, his name remains a symbol of ambition and the extraordinary heights one person can reach. And though he never posted a single image or gathered a single follower on social media, his legacy proves that true greatness needs no modern validation, only the enduring power of history to keep the story alive.